This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. Parshas Vayakhel. As we prepare for Shabbos and for Purim, Haba Aleinu L'Tova, the Medrash tells us, Bereshis Rabbah, Chayisara Nun Ches Gimel. Rabbi Akiva haya yoshev v'doresh. Rabbi Akiva was sitting and darshaning, v'hat tzibur misnamneim, and the tzibur was dozing off. Right? The more things change, the more they say the same. Right? Bikesh la'ayran. He wanted to wake them up. Amar, so he said the following: Ma ra'asa Esther shetimla ichal sheva v'esrim me'ah Medina. What's the chus that Esther have that she ruled over 127 Medinas? Where did she get this from? 127 Medinas? What is the chus to be the queen over 127 Medinas? Ela tavai Esther shahisa bas bita shel Sarah. Let Esther come, who's the granddaughter of Sarah Imenu. Shechaisa kuf v'chaf v'zayin. Sarah lived 127 years. The Simlach and she'll rule Aval al Kuf v'Chaf v'Zayin Medinos over 127 Medinos. Now, Rabbi said right off the bat, if you're sitting in an audience and the rabbi is darshaning and you're falling asleep, if you hear this, you're going to be out cold. What exactly is so interesting about the fact that why did Esther rule over 127 Medinas? In the chus of Sarah. Well, it's so mamish, unbelievable. I was about to doze off and I heard this. Wow, that's so interesting. I mean, if you weren't out before this is gonna knock you out. Well, what's so interesting about this medrash? What's so interesting about this information? So the Chacham Sofer, in his Hakdama to Masechta Chulin, okay, very interesting Maramakim we have. The Chacham Sofer's introduction to Masechta Chulin, he starts off, look on the second line, he said, V'hinei milvad koshi ha-medrash. Aside from the fact that this medrash is very difficult to understand, oid yesh l'hasayra, we also have to think about the following. Think about it this way. How do we know that that Esther ruled over 127 dinos in the chus of Sarah? Right, we know Sarah lived 127 years. But what about Avraham Avinu? How many years did Avraham Avinu live for? 175. At what age was Avraham Hikar as Boirei according to the Gemara? 48. So how many years did Avraham serve Hashem? 127. So Mehechi Teisi, Esther ruled in the chus of Sarah. Maybe it's in the chus of Avraham. What, Avraham was no slouch. So who says it was in the chus of Sarah? Sarah's 127? I'll tell you, Avraham. Ask Chacham Sofer. Oid yesh l'soyer, my time loy tola b'schusa shel Avraham Avinu olav hashalom shechai kuf ayin hey. Why don't we toilet on the schus of Avraham? He lived 175. Uben memches hikar boira. He was 48 when he recognized Hashem. Nimsa mishnas memches ad tashlum kuf ayin hey comes out from the age of 48 until 175. Who kuf chav zayin shanim? Who says it's in the chus of Sarah? Maybe it's chus of Avraham. Avraham lived to 175. 48 he recognized God. That's 127 righteous years. Maybe that's what did it. Who says? You think Esther could care less that she ruled over 127 and not 126 or 124? You think when Esther got up in the morning, he said, just the other week it was only 124. And Baruch Hashem, now it's 127. You think she could care less if it was 17 or 127 or 43? What's the big schus? What's such a zechia? No, now Baruch Hashem, the Eskimos are also under my umbrella. Oh, Baruch Hashem, I got the Native American Indians. It used to be 126, and now that we got, who cares? 127, 124, 119. What's the big schus? Okay, so how do we answer this question? We have to learn this week's Parsha, of course. So the Parsha says in Lamed Hei Chav Zayin, V'hanasiyim heviu, what did the Nasiyim bring? Eis avnei hashayam, ve'eis avnei hamiluim, la'ifod v'achoshen. What did the Nasiyim bring? They didn't bring the Zav, they didn't bring the Kesef, they didn't bring the Nechoshas, not the Tcheles, not the Argama, not the Toilah Shani, not the Sheish, not Ma'oris Elam Adam, V'oris Choshem Atzei Shitim, V'shaman Lamar, V'sam V'sham Mishcha, none of that. Of all the 11 items that were brought for the Nedavas HaMishkan, the Nesiyim did not bring any of the first 9, right? If you look in Parshas Chuma, beginning of Parshas Chuma, it lists 11 items that were donated for the Mishkan. The Nesiyim did not bring anything except for the Avnei Shayam and the Avnei Miluim. Right? Take a look at the beginning of Parshas Truma, and what does it say? It says, Zav Chesam Nechashes Ches Hagon Salah Shani Sheish Izim Ayrasim Ladam Ayrasim Teshitim Shem Lamar. Fine, and they bring the Avnei Shalom and the Avnei Miluim. Sagt Rashi, V'Hanesim Heviu Amar Rav Nasan Maro Nesim Lehisnadev B'Chanukas HaMizbeach B'Tchila. Why is it you look in Parshas Nasai, who brought to the inauguration of the Mizbeach? The Nesim. So Nesim stepped up to the plate. They came first. They were the first to donate. Uvimlachas HaMishkan. And when it came to donating to the Mishkan, they sort of took a back seat and they donated last. Ela kach amru Nesim. This is what the Nesim said. Yisnadvu tzibur ma'ashin esnadvim. Let the tzibur bring whatever they bring. Or mashu mechasrin, and whatever they're missing, I say, we'll complete, we'll fulfill. In other words, it would seem like a very generous offer of the Nesim. The Nesim said, whatever's missing, we'll bring. Let you guys, we can't always be the ones responsible, like the Ashirim say. We can't always bear the brunt of the financial burden. Let the regular people bring in, and whatever's missing, we will donate. That's what the Nesim said. The only problem was, Klal Yisrael acted very generously. They brought everything. Shenemar v'hamlacha hoisadayam. Like the pasuk says, the malacha, the work was complete. Amru Nesim ma'aleinu lasis, and Nesim felt very bad. What are we going to bring? All the gold, all the silver, all the copper, everything was donated already. So instead, what did they bring? The last missing donation. Heviu es avnei hashayim. They brought the avnei shayim. Lekach hisnadvu b'chanukas hamizbeach tchila. That is why, to make up for this, they were the first ones to donate later when they inaugurated the mizbeach. Sagt Rashi, ulefi shenesatzlu mitchila. And because the Nesim acted lazily, nechseru ois mishamam. Their name is missing a letter, right? You look at the word v'hanesim, there should be a yud. So then the yud was removed. V'hanesim ksiv without a yud. There should be a yud between the aleph and the final mem, and that yud was taken away to show what? That they acted lazily, and therefore there was something missing from their offer, and therefore there's a letter missing from their name. So Rabbi said, let's think about it for a minute. What was wrong with what the Nesim suggested? What was wrong with their offer? What more do you want from the Nesim? The bottom line is, you need to get the job done. So the Nesim said, look, we're going to get the job done. Whatever is missing, we will complete the task. So what was missing? What was lacking in the offer of the Nesim? They said, bottom line is, we guarantee the job will get done. What more do you want from them? What more could you ask from them? So that's the question. The question is, what is lacking in the offer of the Nesim? Now, Rabbi say, where did the Nesim get the Avnei Shayam and the Avnei Miluim from? Where did they get it from? I mean, they were mining the midbar. They were the guys with the metal detectors. They were searching for these precious stones in the sand. Where did they get the Avnei Shayam and Avnei Miluim from? So you look at Targum Yonasan ben Uziel. By the way, you know who the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel was not written by? You have Yonasan ben Uziel. Rabbi Yonasan ben Uziel did not. Now you said, what? Rabbi Yonasan ben Uziel did not write the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel. The Gemara Megillah says Yonasan ben Uziel wrote Targum of Nevi'im, right? And he wanted to write Ksu, and Eretz Yisrael shook 400 amos and 400 amos, and then the Malachim said, who revealed the secret? And he said, I didn't do it for my honor. And then he wanted to reveal Ksuvim, but he couldn't because in Daniel it says when the case is going to be. But the Gemara does not say that Yonasan ben Uziel wrote the Targum on Chumash. Who wrote on Chumash? Unclus. So why is it called Targum Yonasan ben Uziel? You have to know this. The printers made it up. Why did they make this up? Because Targum Yonasan ben Uziel is really Yushalmi. Targum Yushalmi. But there are two Targum Yushalmi. So the printers couldn't think of another name. They're going to call Targum Yushalmi Senior or Targum Yushalmi Junior. So they made up Yonasan ben Uziel. He has nothing to do with it. By the way, this is not my Torah. The Chidah writes this explicitly. That Rabbi Yonasan ben Uziel did not write Targum Yonasan. But in any event, it's an authentic Targum. I know, I shook you up your world, right? So Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says like this. Va'ane, people go to his kever, learning Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, He's probably thinking, what? Yeah. Va'ane Shemaya. The clouds of the heavens. Uzlin lepishain. They went to Pishain. What's Pishain? It's what? It's a river, one of the 4 original rivers. Vidalion mitaman, and they mined from there, the clouds of glory. The Ananei Kavod mined Yas Avnei Vorlas, the Avnei Shayim, Chela, Vyas Avnei Ashlamusa, Lashaka'a Be'efoida, and the Avnei Miluim, to put in the ephod, and the Choshen, Umachsan Yasain, and they deposited it beyond Pei Madbara in the desert. Ozlin Rav Ravane Yisrael, the Nesiim went, Umaisan Yasain, and they brought them Letzroich Ividita for the purpose of the Avodah. So we have an amazing idea that's mentioned over here. Where did the Nesiim get the Avnei Shem and Avnei Miluim from? Stones from heaven. The Ananei HaKavod, the clouds, right? Nesiim, the clouds came and brought them. They didn't cost them any money. It didn't cost them any effort. It was like delivered to their doorstep, free delivery. Yeah, no taxes. Now, Rabbi, so take a look at the next pasuk, Chavches in Parshas Monumental. It says like this: V'sayvin anonei shemaya. The clouds went nachama. They went again. V'ozlin legan Eden. This time they went to Gan Eden. V'nasvin mitaman, and they brought yas busma b'chira, ketores, v'yas mishcha dezesa, and olive oil. By the way, when we once had a shiur on Chanukah, are you allowed to use shemen nes? We once had a shiur on that. So from this Targum you understand Ben Uziel, maybe you'll see that miraculous oil is considered halachic oil, because here they brought it from Gan Eden. The clouds brought it from Gan Eden. Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank has in his tshuva, he wants to bring from here. Fine. So now we're learning that these Nesiim, they were not simple individuals. They were privy to, home delivery from the Ananei HaKavod. So Rabbi say, you look in Parshas Truma, all the 11 items that were donated to the Mishkan, Zahav, Chesef, Nechoshes, Tcheles, Argam, of all the 11 items, which is the most valuable? Avnei Shayam, Avnei Miluim. And even though they're the most valuable, they're listed last. Why are they listed last? Aren't they the most valuable? That's the question of the Archaim HaKadosh. Look at number 6. Tzarich lidas, lama kasav Avnei Shayam, Avnei Miluim, b'seder achar kol hayud alef minim. Why are these 11 items mentioned after? Why are the Avnei Shayam and Avnei Miluim mentioned after the 11 items? They're more valuable, they're more precious, they're more rare. They should be mentioned first. Says Archaim HaKadosh, when were they donated? They were donated last. They're donated last. They're listed last, to indicate that there was something missing on the part of the Nesiim. They should have offered it immediately. They should have offered it right away. And because they were lazy, that's what Rashi says, because there was something lacking. Well, they lacked zrizus. They should have brought it right away. So therefore, they brought it last. They're mentioned last. So very interesting. You have an appeal in the shul. Yeah. So one guy offers $100. One guy offers $10,000. Who's doing more? Well, how do we evaluate it? The one that brings in the check first, that has a certain value even more over the one who gives 10 times that amount. Because here, the Nesiim, you can make the case, offer the most important item to the Mishkan, the rarest item. But nevertheless, they're mentioned last because they didn't have the initiative. They were atzlanim. They said, whatever's missing, we will donate. Fine. The second answer Archaim HaKadosh gives is the following. Where did the Nesiim get these items from? Where did they get them from? Did they go into their bank account? Did it cost them anything? Did they put any effort into it? No. It was a freebie from God. No tircha, no yigia. It's wonderful you gave a big donation. In the eyes of the Rebbeinu Shalom, the fact that other Jews gave out of their own pocket is much more valuable than the fact that you gave the most valuable thing, but it didn't cost you anything. So what we're learning is the value system in the eyes of Hashem. What's important in the eyes of Hashem is not necessarily kama, how much, but how. How did you do it? Zrizus? Did it cost you? Was there chisar and kiss? Was there yigia? Was there amelos? So Rabbi said this brings us into a fascinating topic, an amazing topic, a very famous machlokes among the achronim. We go to the Tshuvas of the Radvaz. Look at number 7. Rav David ibn Avi Zimra. The Radvaz was a Rebbe. He had very chashuv Talmidim. He had Rabbi Yaakov Castro. He had Rabbi Tal Ashkenazi. And the Arizal. The Arizal was a Talmud of the Radvaz. Radvaz was the Rav in Cairo for 40 years. He wrote more than 2,500 Tshuvas. Okay? Listen to the Shiloh that the Radvaz was presented with. I'll tell you outside. Ruvain is in jail. And Ruvain's in jail, there's no minyan, there are no mitzvahs, there's no shofar, there's no matzah, there's no Yom Kippur, there's nothing. He's in jail, he's in his own Dalet Amos. And he pleads to the officer, he pleads to the Sar, to the Hegmoin, and he says, do me a favor. Let me out. Get me out of here. So he says, you know what, I'll make you a deal. One day I will let you out. You could leave, here's a calendar, you just make a check. On one day I will let you out for any day you want. And the question the Radvaz was asked was, what day of the year should Ruvain choose to go out? Look at number 7. Shaila. Ruvain hayachavash v'veisasur. Ruvain's in jail. V'lai hayachal latzos l'spal b'asar. He can't go to minyan. V'lasos hamitzvos. V'hischanim l'fnei hasar oya hegmoin. He pleads to the sar, the hegmoin. V'lai ava shmai ala hanichai. And he does not allow him to leave. Zulasi yoim echad b'shana. Except for one day a year. Eze yoim sheyachas, whatever day he wants. Yoyre hamoira, please Rabbi, teach me. Eze yoim mikol yimais hashana yivcha ruvein hanizko alechas bezah. What day should he choose? What day?
First day.
Zok the Radvaz. Hine ro'isi echad michachmei doreini. I saw a certain Rav in our generation. The tshuva davar zeh. Solal b'mayim adirim. The guy's drowning in the deep waters. The guy, he lost it. This Rav, I don't know what he's talking about. The helech cheres biyada, and what he came up with was, pottery. V'al yisoid ruah bana yisoid, and he built his whole binyan, his whole foundation. His whole foundation is faulty. First, he wants to say he should choose Yom Kippur. If after all, Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, Shabbos Shabbosayin. What better day to choose than Yom Kippur? Then the guy wants to say Purim. Because of Mikra Megillah, Parsume Nisa, and you need a minyan. Says the Radvaz, I'll tell you what day he should go out. It's not Shabbos, it's not Yom Kippur, it's not Purim, it's not Tu B'Shvat. You know what day it is? Today. The first day you have the opportunity. Why? Aval Masha Roilis Mechalav. You know what I would say? Hu da'anan kaimalon ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. You cannot delay doing a mitzvah. You cannot pass over a mitzvah. There's no machloikis on the rule of ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. It's unanimous. Everybody says you have the opportunity to do a mitzvah. You cannot pass over the mitzvah to do another mitzvah. Hilkach ha-mitzvah harishayna shetav liyadai. If it's a Monday, you say hegmoin, I'm going out today. If it's a Tuesday, you go out today. If it's a Wednesday, you go out today. Right? Hilkach mitzvah harishayna shetav liyadai. The first mitzvah that comes your way, sheyav shalat soisai, that you would not be able to do in jail. V'uchavish b'veis asurim kaidemes. That comes first. Ve'ein mashkichin. We don't care if the first mitzvah that comes your way is a regular Tuesday, and it's just a matter of minyan. But what do you mean next week's Yom Kippur? In ma'avir na'ala mitzvahs. Today's Tuesday, you need to daven with a minyan. You daven today with a minyan. Ve'in mashkichin ma mitzvah shepaga b'tchila hikala. We couldn't care less if the first mitzvah that comes your way was a small one. Ay chamura she'i ato yoidea matan scharon shel mitzvahs. Nobody knows the reward for mitzvahs. Maybe if you leave today and you say Amen Yehishmei Rabbah, that will be greater than anything else that you're waiting for. And says the Radvaz, this is not a matter of debate to me. I have no question about this. V'zeh pashut ma'oid etzli. This is very simple. This is very obvious. If you have an opportunity to leave the jail for one day, you leave immediately and you take whatever opportunity you have first. That is the psak of the Radvaz. Mitzvah, habal yadai, ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. Fine. So, very interesting psak. The guy is wallowing in jail. He's waiting, in 3 weeks is Purim. So he reads his psak. Now he goes out tomorrow, right, to daven with the minyan. He's been waiting for, doesn't matter. You stay in jail for the rest of the year, you go out tomorrow. Does everybody agree to this? No. Of course not. What? Says the right. If this is not your first week in the share, then you'll know that, right? So the Chacham Tzvi, the Tzvi Ashkenazi, in the Shas Chuvas Chacham Tzvi in Siman Kuvav, he quotes the Radvaz, and he quotes the Psak of the Radvaz that the first opportunity that you have to do a mitzvah, you should jump on it. And says the Chacham Tzvi, Yaakov Emden's father, look on the 5th line, V'yesh lahakshir sazeh. You could challenge this principle that the Radvaz has set forth. The Kami Boilan, the Parakat Chelas, Daf Mem Tes. If you look in the Gemara Menachos, Daf Mem Tes, and you have a tzibur she'ein lohem tmidin umusafin. Let's say you have in the Beis Hamikdash, they only have one animal, and they could use it for the carbon tamid, and they could use it for the carbon musaf, but they only have one animal. What should they do? Should they use it for the carbon tamid, or should they use it for the carbon musaf? And the Gemara asks, Eize mehen koydem? Which one comes first? You hear the question? One behema, either the musaf or the tamid. And the Gemara establishes the case, either the musaf today or the tamid tomorrow. Umuki laba musafin deha'idna. Either you could bring the musaf today, Shabbos, or tamidin telamacha, or the tamid Sunday. What's the shaila? Says the Gemara, tadir adif, is tadir better, and therefore you bring tomorrow? Ay mekudash adif. Or do we say the carbon musaf has more kedusha, and therefore the mekudash is better? So do we say the carbon musaf which is more holy, or do we say the carbon tamid which is more frequent? Ask the Chacham Tzvi, what's the shaila in the Gemara? What do you mean bring the tamid which is more tadir? What do you mean more tadir? Ein mavir nala mitzvahs. Who cares? Tadir v'sheino tadir kadem. But today you have the opportunity to perform a mitzvah, the musaf. Ein mavir nala mitzvahs. If the Radvaz is right, then whenever you have an opportunity, a better mitzvah today, a lesser mitzvah today, or a better mitzvah tomorrow, the Radvaz says ein mavir nala mitzvahs. So what's the Gemara shaila? Musaf today, tamid tomorrow, because tamid tomorrow, tadir. Who cares about tadir? Ein mavir nala mitzvahs. So Rabbi said, what do you see from this Gemara? That ein mavir nala mitzvahs does not apply when the mitzvah is greater. That if tomorrow's mitzvah is a greater mitzvah, you wait for tomorrow. That's what the Gemara says. Maybe wait for the tamid because it's tadir. Ein mavir nala mitzvahs. No, ein mavir nala mitzvahs doesn't apply if you're waiting for a greater mitzvah. Exactly not like who? Radvaz. Not like the Radvaz. This is a raya against the Radvaz? Right, the Gemara says, do we say that because of tadir that's a greater? Or do we say that, no, now is greater. But in other words, we see from here that the fact that a mitzvah, tadir is an objectively...
Tadir we know. Who determines which is greater?
So
which is a greater mitzvah?
Well, we know Yom Kippur is... Okay. Yeah, but we know that Yom Kippur is more important than a regular weekday. I mean, if you're allowed to eat on a regular weekday. You're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur. So what's more important? Right now, let's say right now, I could either fast on Yom Kippur or I could go daven with a minyan. That never happens. It's not usually either or. But in this case, it is either or. So we see from the Gemara that if tadir is a quality that makes something greater, and you even are willing to violate ein mavir nala mitzvahs, so then certainly you should be able to violate ein mavir nala mitzvahs to be able to wait for Yom Kippur. In other words, what's greater? Davening with a minyan on a Tuesday or davening with a minyan on Yom Kippur? I mean, how could anybody say davening with a minyan on a Tuesday is greater than davening with a minyan on a Yom Kippur? So how could the Radvaz then say, no, leave jail tomorrow? What do you mean leave jail tomorrow? But we know from the Gemara Menachos that if once you've determined that one mitzvah is greater than the other, then we do wait. Right? Look at the Chacham Tzvi. He says, Bi kisavris harazal. If you're going to say like the Radvaz, af tadir adif. Even if tadir is better, and therefore you should bring the tamid tomorrow, musafin kadmi. The musaf should come first. Mitam de'ein mavir nala mitzvahs. Ela vadai tulayam rinon ein mavirin ala mitzvahs. We only say ein mavirin ala mitzvahs. Ela b'shtein shavos. That's if the two mitzvahs are equal. Aval loy b'dechad minayu adif. So Rabbi say we have a big machlokes over here. Yeah. We have machlokes between the Radvaz and the Chacham Tzvi. The Radvaz would say if you're in jail and you can only leave one day, what day should you leave? Today. Chacham Tzvi would say if you can only leave one day, what day should you leave? Yom Kippur, Shabbos. You wait for the bigger mitzvah. Then the Chacham Tzvi goes through certain cases where he would agree that the Radvaz is correct. For example, take a look. Let's read this. Ela Shirayani Divrei HaRadvazal Talmud Arachim. I feel, says the Chacham Tzvi, that the Radvaz does apply in certain cases. Because in the first parak of Moed Katan, Rabbi Yonasan ben Asmai, Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim, these two Tanoim, the Karamu Kraya Hadadi, they ask a contradiction in Psukim. Ksiv, it says in one pasuk, Pales Magal Raglecha, weigh the footsteps, weigh the path of your feet, which means weigh which mitzvah is greater. V'kasav, and another pasuk says, Oirach Chayim, the path of life, Pentefales, don't weigh. So one pasuk in Mishlei says, weigh the two mitzvahs, which one is greater, and another pasuk says, don't weigh mitzvahs. Answers the Gemara, Loi Kasha, Kan b'mitzvah she'ef shel asoy sa'idei acherim, Kan b'mitzvah she'ef shel asoy sa'idei acherim. Rashi explains, Palace, when do you weigh mitzvahs? When do you weigh mitzvahs? When do we say va'aseh hagdoila? And it says except pentaphalis, it says don't weigh it. The other pasuk says just do it. Don't forsake the small one because of the big one. Says Rashi. Mitzvah shefshal says if you have two mitzvahs, and if you do A, Yankel will do B, the other guy will do B. So either way, both mitzvahs will get done. Then you know which one you should do, the better one. You know what? When you weigh, sometimes you should weigh mitzvahs. If there are two mitzvahs, and if you do A, Pliny will do B, and if you do B, Pliny will do A, you weigh which mitzvah is greater. I'll do the greater one. I'll let him do the smaller one. But if it's EF Shaydei Acherim, if only one mitzvah is going to get done, listen to what he says. Mitzvah she'ef shel asoy sa'idei acherim. Al tefales ela mitzvah sheba liyadcha ben gedola ben ketan asay. If you can only do one mitzvah, and there's nobody else involved, you just chap the first mitzvah that comes your way. Says the Chacham Tzvi, you know when the Radvaz said, grab the mitzvah, do the first mitzvah that comes your way? Mistama divrei haRadvazal b'mitzvah she'i efshar la'asoy sa'idei acherim. The Radvaz is talking about where the other mitzvah cannot be performed by anyone else. Now listen to this. We know when it comes to Kiddush Levana, the Shulchan Aruch paskins in Siman Tav Chavav. What night of the week should you do Kiddush Levana?
Matzah Shabbos.
Matzah Shabbos. Yeah. Why should you do Kiddush Levana Matzah Shabbos? Because you're full, you're wearing your nice suit, you're muvusam yoser. You're smelling better, you're happier, you're in a better mood. But wait a second. But you could have done it Thursday night. You could have done it Friday night. Why didn't you do it earlier? So what do you see from the Shulchan Aruch? Is it better to do bezrizus, or is it better to do mitzvah min ha-muvchar? Another again, right? What's our question? The question at hand is, should I do a mitzvah, chap arayin, a mitzvah, do it right away? Even if I chap it arayin, I won't do it on such a high level? Or is it better to wait? And if I wait, I'll be able to do the mitzvah in a much better oifen, in a better way. So don't you see from the Shulchan Aruch? The Shulchan Aruch doesn't say, the first opportunity to do Kiddush Levana, do it. The Shulchan Aruch says, wait for Matzah Shabbos. So you see from here, like the Radvaz, or like the Chacham Tzvi? Like the Chacham Tzvi. Better to do a mitzvah min ha-muvchar than to do it bezrizus. So says the Chacham Tzvi, it's not a raya to me. Anytime you have one mitzvah, and you could either choose to do it immediately, not so well, or wait a little bit and do it better, you wait a little bit to do it better. You wait a little bit to do it better. However, then he says, but if that's the case, so if the guy's in jail, if he's going to daven with a minyan, isn't it better to daven with a minyan on a Yom Kippur than to daven with a minyan immediately? So that's what the Chacham Tzvi says. Yeah, he should wait. He should wait. He should do the mitzvah min hamuvchar and wait for the best opportunity to perform the mitzvah, whether it's Yom Kippur or a Shabbos or Shabbos Rosh Chodesh and so forth. But says the Chacham Tzvi, there's always the concern that the goyim tell you, yeah, you could leave the jail, but if you wait, maybe they'll change their mind. So that's also a factor. Okay. So Rabbi say, bottom line is, we have a general machlokes, and this is brought down in many, many svarim, a general machlokes in hashkafa. When you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, is it better to do the mitzvah chaparain, do it bezrizus, even though if you do it immediately, it won't be so well? You know, you have an opportunity to do the mitzvah. Yeah, but I didn't wash my hands yet, and I'm not ready, and my suit hasn't been straightened out, and I wasn't toivel zayin yet. Zrizim makdim l'mitzvahs, ein ma'avirin al mitzvahs. You go, you do the mitzvah immediately. That's the opinion of the Radvaz. Chacham Tzvi says no. You wait. If you need time to get yourself ready to do the mitzvah in a better oifen, then we say what? Better mitzvah min hamuvchar adif. That's the shaila. Do we say zrizus adif or mitzvah min hamuvchar adif?
How does a person know that he's going to live tomorrow? What is the guarantee?
Okay, so
also with Kiddush Levana,
yeah,
it happened a couple of times also that you're not sure, but some people said it, some didn't. Those who didn't say it got even worse the following week.
So that's why the Ramah says on that Shulchan Aruch in Siman Tav Chavav that once you reach the 11th day, then you do it. Even you don't wait for Shabbos. You don't wait for a Matzah Shabbos. In other words, even within this machlokes, I'm just simplifying it. What's better, Zrizus or Mitzvah Min HaMuvchar? But at every interval, you always have to weigh. Yeah, of course, mitzvah min hamuvchar is better. But there's certain times where if you're cutting it close, mitzvah min hamuvchar, there is no tomorrow. Right. Another mitzvah min hamuvchar. I'll daven better after the zman. I'll say shema better after the zman kriya shema. So of course not. Of course you have to do the mitzvah bezmanai, right? Nobody would say, oh, mitzvah min hamuvchar adif. It's not a mitzvah anymore after the zman. So there are always many variables that change the outcome. But we're just simplifying it.
Radvaz would argue that you don't wait till Moshe Shabbos for Kiddush Levana.
Obviously not.
We don't know. We don't know what the Radvaz. We're simplifying the machlokes. We're just saying in general. The Radvaz suggests if you have one opportunity to leave the jail, the Radvaz would say leave tomorrow. The Chacham Tzvi would say wait for the bigger mitzvah. Now, does that mean the Radvaz never says mitzvah min hamuvchar adif? Probably not. Does that mean the Chacham Tzvi never says Rizus Adif? Probably not. But this is a general machlokes.
It's also a possible. Mitzvah b'al yadcha tach mitzvena.
Yeah.
How do you explain that?
When the mitzvah comes your way,
You don't let it sour. You do it right away. Take advantage.
But you have to do the mitzvah. In other words, what if the matzah is not baked yet? Do you put the matzah in the oven and before it's baked, you grab it out? Of course not.
No, but if you can get out of jail today, you don't say, you know what, I'm going to get out in Yom Kippur, which is 2 weeks away. Who knows what's going to be in 2 weeks?
So you agree with the Radvaz, and the Chacham Tzvi says no. Chacham Tzvi says, you're going to daven with the minyan on Tuesday, and you're going to be mevatel the whole Yom Kippur davening.
The Mashiach is not going to come, and all the mitzvahs are going to be batal in a week.
Well, his name is Chacham.
So Rabbi say, there's another way, right? Remember, the Chacham Tzvi, what's the Chacham Tzvi's main question on the Radvaz? The Chacham Tzvi's main question on the Radvaz is from the Gemara in the Masechta Menachos Daf Mem Tes. The Gemara Menachos asks that what should you do? The Musaf today or the Tamid tomorrow? So the Chacham Tzvi says, what do you mean the Tamid tomorrow? But Ein Ma'avir Ala Mitzvahs. So from there, the Chacham Tzvi derived that we don't say Ein Ma'avir Ala Mitzvahs if you have a better mitzvah tomorrow. Yeah?
Well,
So the Ber Heitev, one second. The Ber Heitev in Arachaim Siman Tzadik, he brings down this machlokes between the Radvaz and the Chacham Tzvi, and he wants to answer the Chacham Tzvi's question on the Radvaz. Again, Chacham Tzvi asked on the Radvaz that you see in Menachos that the Gemara has a tzad to say Tamid tomorrow as opposed to Musaf today. So don't you see from there we don't say in Ma'avir Ala Mitzvahs? Says the Ber Heitev, he brings down from the Leket HaKemach on the 5th line. He says, what's the reasoning of Ein Ma'avir Ala Mitzvahs? What's the logic of it? So like Boaz said, the logic is, you're going to say, I'll wait till Yom Kippur in 2 weeks. Mir der ma yelad yom. Who knows, right? Who knows if we're going to be here in 2 weeks? Nobody even knows what next hour has in store. Nobody knows what's tomorrow. So you're going to say, I won't do the mitzvah today, I'll do a bigger mitzvah in 2 weeks. Do a bigger mitzvah in 2 weeks? Who says you'll make it to then? Says the Ber Heitev from the Leket HaKemach, Ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs does not apply to the tzibur. Ein ma'avirin mitzvah is only for a yachid, because a yachid could die. Ein tzibur mesim. The tzibur is never going to go away. There'll always be a tzibur. So when you say, why should I wait for tomorrow's Tamid? I should wait for tomorrow's Tamid. Who says I'll be here? Excuse me, whether you're here or a different kain or a third kain or somebody else, there will be a kain tomorrow. So the whole svara of the Radvaz is Ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. Ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs only applies to mitzvahs hayachid, not to mitzvahs hatzibur. Okay? So that's the answer of... So the Ber Heitev is defending the Radvaz. The Radvaz says, you always say zrizim. You see in Menachos Memtes that what? That we don't say Ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. Says the Ber Heitev, of course not. That's a tzibur. Ein tzibur mesim. Fine. The Chacham Sofer, in all of his writings, is very, very fond of this machlokes between the Radvaz and the Chacham Tzvi. I found you have on your sheets at least 3 places where the Chacham Sofer in his drashas, he uses, B'simcha shel Torah, he uses the machlokes Radvaz and the Chacham Tzvi for different inyanei drush. I'll show you an example. Take a look at number 10. This comes from the Sefer Chacham Sofer HaChadash. And Chacham Sofer HaChadash, it's the newest volume, 1 volume of Drashas al Torah. He's going on the pasuk, Ushmartem es hamatzos, ki biyetzem hayom hazeh hoitzeisi es tzivoisecha me'eretz Mitzrayim. And Rashi brings down the Chazal, al tikri matzos, ela mitzvos, right? Mitzvah habali yadcha, al tach mitzana. So Chacham Sofer says, I have one simple question. What is the concept of mitzvah habal yadcha al tach mitzana? What does that have to do with the end of the pasuk of ki biyetzem hayoym hazeh hoitzeisi es tzivoisechem me'eretz Mitzrayim? What does one thing have to do with the other? So says Chacham Sofer, his one of his favorite tricks over here. Listen to this. He says you have to know the machlokes, the Radvaz and the Chacham Tzvi. Is zrizus better or is mitzvah and amuvchar better? Okay? Says Chacham Sofer, now listen to this. What's the reasoning of the Radvaz? The Radvaz says, zrizus is better than mitzvah and amuvchar. Why? Why is zrizus better? So we would say, of course zrizus is better, because maybe the person won't be here tomorrow. Says Chacham Sofer, that's not the reason. You know why? So what if a person's not here tomorrow? Imagine like this. You have the guy in jail. You could tell him, you could leave today for Minyan, or you could leave next Tuesday for Yom Kippur. So what are we going to tell him? Leave today because you don't even know if you'll make it to Yom Kippur? If the guy doesn't make it to Yom Kippur, he'll still get credit in Shemayim for Yom Kippur. You know why? Because he wanted to fast on Yom Kippur. Chishev lasos mitzvah, v'nenas, v'lo yasa, mala olav hakasav kilo asa. You can't tell the guy, you can't wait till we're telling the guy, go out today, because next Tuesday you don't know if you'll be here. So he'll say, so if I'm not here, I'll still get credit for it. Because I was trying to wait for Yom Kippur, and I wanted to fast on Yom Kippur, and we know any time a person wants to do a mitzvah, and circumstances don't allow you, you're credited for the mitzvah. So you can't say that I have to do today's mitzvah because you don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. So if I'm not here tomorrow, I'll still get credit for it. So let me at least try for tomorrow's mitzvah. Whether I do it or whether I don't do it, I did it. So the reason is not, says the Chacham Sofer, because Shema Yamos. Why? Da'al kapanim chishev lasos mitzvah min hamuchar v'nenas lo yasam alav hakasav lasa. You know what the logic of do it now is? Who says tomorrow you'll still be a from a Jew? Me? Me? A from a Jew? What are you talking about? I have a black suit. I have a langa beard. So, no, you can't believe in yourself. Maybe by next Tuesday you'll be off the beaten path, off the straight and narrow. Maybe by the time next Yom Kippur comes, you'll be doing other things. That's what it says of some Sefer. That's the chashash. Achatam. The reason is, you know why you got to daven with the minyan today? Because if you're going to wait for next Tuesday, you never know what could happen. Not with you, not with your gashmias, with your ruchnias. Achatam al tamin ba'atzmecha shem echas v'shalom yifatenu yitzahar shaloi lasos. Maybe Yetzer Hara will persuade you not to. Rabbi say, why did Hashem have to take us out of Mitzrayim so quickly? Why did Hashem have to take us out of Mitzrayim at that moment? Because had we been there for one extra moment, the Yetzer Hara would have made us fall to the point of no return, to the Shar Nun, to the 50th level of Tumah, the point of no return. Look what the Yetzer Hara could do in one moment! If that's what the Yetzer Hara could do in one moment, Ushmartem es hamatzos al tikri matzos ela mitzvos. Mitzvah haba liyadcha al tachmitzana. Says the Chacham Sofer, that's a beautiful reading of the pasuk. Ushmartem es hamitzvos, which we darshan mitzvah haba liyadcha al tachmitzana. You know why? Me? I should do the mitzvah right away? I'll wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow anyway, my stocks are going to go up. I'll be in a better mood. I'll be happier. The weather, tomorrow's going to be 90 degrees. All the snow is going to melt. So then I'll wait for tomorrow. Have more kavanah. I'll be able, right now the mikvah is frozen. Tomorrow it will be melted already. So says the pasuk, no. Rebbeinu Shalom could not wait one more moment, because you know what the Yetzer Hara could do in a moment? He could drag you to the lowest of the low. That's the reason why. The reason is not Shema Yamos. Shema Yamos, I'll still get credit because I wanted to do it. The reason is because you never know what the Yetzer Hara could do. One more little Jewish Chacham Sofer has, look at number 11, on the pasuk, Zek Heli V'Yanveu Elokei Avi V'Aroy Mimenu. Rabbi say, you wake up early in the morning, and you can only say Shema once. You can either say Shema immediately at the beginning of the day, but you won't be able to say B'Saymech Gula L'Tfilah, or you could say it a little bit later, still before there's not Kriya Shema, and B'Saymech Gula L'Tfilah. What's better, Lehakdumei Shema, or Mitzvah Min HaMuvchar of Lahasmech Gula L'Tfilah? So what would we say?
Wait.
Very good. It's a machlokes, the Radvaz, and the Chacham Tzvi. By the way, keep that answer in mind for other questions coming up. Okay? It's a machlokes, Radvaz, and Chacham Tzvi. The Radvaz would say Shema immediately. The Chacham Tzvi would say Mitzvah Min HaMuvchar. The only problem is the Gemara has something to say about this. And what does the Gemara say? And Daf Tes and Brachos, Smichas Gula L'Tfilah Adif. So isn't the Gemara a raya against Radvaz? Because the Gemara is saying, yeah, it's nice to say Shema early in the morning, but even what trumps that is being Samech Gula L'Tfilah. So you have a raya against Radvaz. So says the Chacham Sofer, what's the logic of the Radvaz? Is the logic that you might die, Chas v'Shalom? No. Because if that was the logic, even if a person does go, he wanted to do the better mitzvah, so he'll get credit for it. Rabbi said, what's the logic of the Radvaz? The logic is, the Yetzer Hara is going to get you not to do the mitzvah. Says the Chacham Sofer, by Kabbalah Sol Malchus Shamayim, we're not worried the Yetzer Hara is not going to get us to do it. Why? Because we're Ma'aminim B'nei Ma'aminim. When it comes to mitzvah so Amunah, Chacham Sofer says, Moshe Rabbeinu said, v'heim lo yaminu bi, and Hashem said, no, don't say that about them. Watch out. Be careful how you talk. Hey ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. So therefore, says Chacham Sofer, the whole chash is Yetzer Hara. We're not worried about the Yetzer Hara, says Chacham Sofer, when it comes to Kabbalas Malchus Shamayim, because we are ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. Says Chacham Sofer like this: Zeh keli v'yanveu, Elokei avi v'aroy mimenu. Look at number 11. Perish Rashi. What does it mean? Zakeli v'anvei like avi v'aramenu hakedusha muchzekes hi etzli me'avoisei. We already have a chazaka on the kedusha. What do Chazal darshan from here? Chazal darshu mizeh zakeli v'anveu lehisnois b'mitzvos la'asois min ha'muvchar. From this pasuk we learn to do mitzvah min ha'muvchar. What's the connection between the beginning of the pasuk and the end of the pasuk? The beginning of the pasuk says that the kedusha is right. The Zek Keli V'Anveu, which means do a mitzvah min ha'muvchar. And the end of the pasuk says the kedusha is muchzekes me'avoisai. Says the Chacham Sofer, because we already have an established chazaka on emunah. That's what allows us sometimes to do mitzvah min ha'muvchar and delay the recitation of Kriya Shema to a better time. Aren't we afraid of the Yetzer Hara? When it comes to emunah, since it's muchzekes atzleinu, says the Chassam Sofer, we are not worried that the Yetzer Hara is going to interfere. Okay. I'll tell you a very interesting halacha l'maisa. Okay? You have somebody, this is mamish a common case. Very common case. Day after Rosh Hashanah, somebody comes to you, he says like this, if I fast tomorrow on Tzom Gedalia, I'm not going to make it through Yom Kippur. In the middle of the day, I'm going to be so weak from Tzom Gedalia that if I fast, I have to break my fast on Yom Kippur. But if I don't fast on Tzom Gedalia, I'll make it through Yom Kippur. What should you do? Should you fast Tzom Gedalia or should you fast Yom Kippur? What would you say the answer is? It's machlokes between the Radvaz and the Chacham Tzvi. Says the Steichemer, Misha Baraloi, somebody who's certain, Shem Yisan et Tzom Gedalia, that if he fasts on Tzom Gedalia, Yazak lo Tzom Yom Kippur, V'yia lo machla, and he's going to have an illness, Shenegea l'safek pikuach nefesh, that it's going to endanger his life, V'yitztarech lechal b'Yom Kippur, he's going to have to eat on Yom Kippur, V'tainis Tzom Gedalia, and if he fasts on Tzom Gedalia, Baraloi shlo Yazak, he's not going to get harmed, V'lo yigra shum davar me'atainis. So this question was posed to Rav Agoin Meinurav Dumitz Mezrich, the Sefer Oyel Moshe. Should we say fast on Gedalia? He won't be able to fast on Yom Kippur. No, he'll be an Oinus on Yom Kippur. Or do we say don't fast on some Gedalia in order to fast on Yom Kippur? Brings down the Steichemer. What's the halacha? It's a machlokes between the Radvaz and the Chacham Tzvi. The Radvaz would say, very nice, Yom Kippur is coming up in a week. But right now, mitzvah haba liyotcha is the mitzvah midivrei Kabbalah, the mitzvah midivrei Nevi'im, of fasting on Tzom Gedalia. You fast on Tzom Gedalia, and you'll figure out what happens on Yom Kippur. What would the Chacham Tzvi say? Chacham Tzvi would say, better to wait till Yom Kippur. What? The Raisa Adam.
Not to fast if you don't think you can...
No, better to wait and fast on Yom Kippur.
Not to fast on Tzom Gedalia.
Right. Okay. So Rabbi says it's a very interesting machlokes, very fascinating machlokes. Who do we hold like? So I don't think you're going to find the Mishnah Berurah saying, we paskin like Radvaz, we paskin like Chacham Tzvi, but you should know the Chayei Adam takes sides. The Chayei Adam, I don't have it on the sheet, is after it went to print. Chayei Adam, and you can write it in Klal Samaches. The Chayei Adam says, even though normally we have a rule, Ein Mavirin Ala Mitzvahs, there are 3 cases we don't say Ein Mavirin Ala Mitzvahs. Number 1, if you can't fulfill both of them, if you can't fulfill both mitzvahs, you're Maver Ala Mitzvahs and you wait for the bigger mitzvah. Who is that like?
Chacham Tzvi.
It's like the Chacham Tzvi. That's like the Chacham Tzvi.
Why is that?
One second. Whether it's Dairaisa, or whether it's Tadir, or whether it's Mekudash, even if it means waiting till tomorrow. And he brings a proof. And he says like this, Halacha l'maisa, if you're serving in the Beis HaMikdash, you're one of the Anshe Mishmar, and you could do the Mishmar of today, or tomorrow of Yom Kippur, you should wait for tomorrow to do Yom Kippur. But that's only if it's only a day or so. But if it's a week, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, don't wait. No, but the family was broken up into 6 groups. So if you could arrange that your day... Right. Okay, fine, that's what he says. So who does he hold like? The Radvaz or the Chacham Tzvi? A little bit of both. You do wait for a bigger mitzvah, but don't wait too much. A day or so.
Why do you wait for?
For the bigger mitzvah.
What's that? Explain
It's mitzvah min ha-mufchar. It's a better mitzvah, Yom Kippur.
But in this particular case, he cannot do this now.
What?
He cannot complete even some Gedalia.
But why?
No, he could fast one day. If he's going to fast some Gedalia, he won't have the wherewithal to fast on Yom Kippur. Okay? That's what the Chayei Adam writes. Number 2, listen to what he says. If you're not doing a mitzvah, but you see a mitzvah, because, there are a lot of people involved. You see from afar a mitzvah over there, you're allowed to pass by to do a bigger mitzvah. The rule of Ein Ma'avirin Ala Mitzvah is only if you're oisek in the mitzvah, you can't give it up to do a bigger mitzvah. But if it's merely something you see, for example, let's say you see 1 block away people are helping somebody dig out of the car, get their car out of the ice. And 3 blocks away, somebody's involved in Pidyon Shvuyim. So you say, ein Ma'avir Al Mitzvahs, I'm going to be passing by. No. It's not considered Ma'avir Al Mitzvahs until you're actively engaged in it. By the way, I think the Mishnah Berurah argues. Because the Mishnah Berurah says, very interesting halacha, might not be, if you're in a room, we know you put on talis before tefillin, yeah? If you touch your tefillin before the talis, you got to put on tefillin before the talis. People are going to think you've lost it. That's what you got to do. Right? You touch your tefillin before the talis in the morning, you put on the tefillin and then the talis. What if your tefillin bag is in your room and your talis is in the next room? Mishnah Berurah says you put on the tefillin first and then you put on the talis because of ein ma'avir al mitzvahs. Even though you're not actively involved with the talis, you just saw it. So I don't know, maybe it's a machlokes with Chayad, I'm not sure.
What do you do if you take out the tefillin still rosh first?
Then you still put on the tefillin shel yad, because there the Torah says explicitly, Chacham lo yisay yadech vayot etzvas, right? There it's...
saying you can't say I have a mezuzah. I don't do any mitzvahs.
Right. It has to be mamish your oisig in it. Right. Now, says the Chayadam, if you could do the mitzvah tomorrow better than the way you could do it today, like Kiddush Levana, that where the Shulchan Aruch says better to wait till Matzah Shabbos, then you should push it off. But he does concede that in the Sefer Chassidim writes, you always do the mitzvah immediately, even if you won't be able to do it so well. So Rabbi said we saw how the Chayadam paskins, how does the Chasam Sofer paskin on this issue? It's hard to know what his psak is based on his writings of Drush, but nevertheless, by reading the writings of the Chasam Sofer, you get the feeling that he's very inclined toward the opinion of the Radvaz, that a person should always try to capitalize and take advantage, chaparain, the mitzvah, as soon as it arises. We saw, for instance, the Chasam Sofer number 10 in Parshas Boy, where the Chasam Sofer quotes the opinion of the Radvaz, and he reads it into the pasuk. Ushmartim es hamatzos, guard the matzos, and Chazal say es ha-mitzvos, ushmartim es ha-mitzvos. Mitzvah haba liyadcha al tachmitzena. Why? Because Ribbonu Shel Olam took us out of Mitzrayim immediately on that day, because you never know, Rabbi say, what the Yetzer Hara could do. Now the Chasam Sofer, in his Hakdama to Masechta Chulin, he says an unbelievable thing. Mamish hafla v'fala. Says the Chasam Sofer, this machlokes between the Radvaz and the Chacham Tzvi is really earlier. It's not just a machlokes achronim. It's not even a machlokes rishonim. It's earlier even than the Gaonim, the Amoram, the Tanoim. It's not even a machlokes neviim. It's a machlokes between Avraham Avinu and Sarah Imenu. Says the Chasam Sofer, mamish hafla v'fala. Then we know that Abraham wanted to serve the Archim, the guests that came to his house. He wanted to serve them bread. But those who know the story know that the bread never made it to the Archim. Why? Because Sarah was Pirsa Nida. Sarah became a Nida. The bread became Tameh. Now Chazal say about Sarah Imenu, V'lechem atzlos lo yiseicha, that the bread of laziness was not eaten. Why are we accusing Sarah of atzlus, of laziness? Says the Chasam Sofer that if you look at the pasuk carefully, Avraham Avinu says, Mahari shlosh se'im kemach soiles lushivasi ugais. Kemach, soiles. Now the question is, kemach is not soiles, and soiles is not kemach. Kemach is coarse flour, soiles is fine flour. The Gemara tells us Avraham said kemach, Sarah said soiles. Abraham said, just get the job done. Just serve them the coarse flour. It's not as delicious, it's not as tasty, it's not as fine. Zrizus, kemach. Sarah says, no, soiles. Sift it. Again and again, nachama. In fact, Chazal say that it was sifted with 13 sieves. Abraham says, just get the job done already. You never know what can happen. Sarah says, mitzvah min amuvchar adif. Abraham says, zrizus. Sarah says, Chacham Tzvi. Abraham says, Radvaz. What happened? Sarah was Pirsanita. Now, Abraham did not give Sarah the behemah to shech, because we know Nashim are now to shech. The Gemara says in Chulin, Nashim atzlani yisem. They don't have the requisite zrizus to be able to be boydek a sakin. Now I don't care what they say in 2014, that equality. The Gemara says the reality is, Noshim, Shechita is not for them. And therefore Abraham kept on saying, no, Kemach. It's better to do it immediately than to do it very, very, very well. And Sarah said, Soilef. And who was correct? We see what happened. The bread never made it out. It didn't come out. Sarah's opinion, the Chacham Tzvi, did not seem to be correct, says the Chassam Sofer. It was Abraham, it was the Baal HaKemach. It was the Baal HaKemach. That's why Chazal say, Im ein Kemach, ein Torah. Because in order to become a Talmid Chacham, it's not enough, again, you can't always say, do it the best. You have to chop around, you have to capitalize when the opportunity comes one's way. Now, Rabbi say, in the times of Purim, what Avera did Klal Yisrael do to deserve the punishment of Haman? So Gemara says in the Masechta Megillah, you have it on your sheets in number 16, Rabbi Lozer says, Biyatzaltayim yimach hamakara, uveshiflos yadayim yidloif habayis. Chazal say, because of the laziness that Klal Yisrael had, that they were not oisik in Torah, the Mekara, the one who makes the roof, God Himself, so to speak, became weak. It was because of our laziness in Torah. That's what brought the whole tragedy of Haman on Klal Yisrael. That says the Chassam Sofer. Chazal don't say we weren't learning. They don't say we weren't davening. No, we were learning. We were davening. We were having Siddharim, Daf Yomi, Shiurim. The Torah was wonderful. There's only one chisaron, atzlos. It was with laziness. It wasn't with simcha. It wasn't with energy. It was farshlufen. It was dragging. It was a drag. That's why the Chassam Sofer says, if you look in Perek Chav Beis in Tehillim, the kapitel that starts Keli Lama Azaftani, which is the chapter in Tehillim that talks about the miracle of Purim. We have many psukim there that allude to the miracle of Purim. For example, Ekra L'Elikim Yoimam V'Loi Yaneh V'Laila V'Loi Dumiel Li, which is a reference to Megillah at night, Megillah during the day. We have many Ayelas HaShachar as a reference to Esther. This is the parak that talks about the miracle of Purim. And the parak ends off with the words that Klal Yisrael in those days were an Am Noilad, a nation that were born again. Parak Chav Beis in Tehillim ends off, Yavayu v'yagidu tzidkasei liam noilad ki asa. And yet, we have a very similar expression. If you look at the end of Tehillim, in the kapitel Mizmar La'ani, Tefillah La'ani Kiyatoif. Tefillah La'ani Kiyatoif ends off slightly differently. Tefillah La'ani Kiyatoif ends off Le'am Nivra. Le'am Nivra. Tikasev Zois. L'dar Acharoin. V'yam Nivra. Yehalel Ka. They're the nation that's created. In the end of days, before Mashiach comes, Klal Yisrael, it won't be that we'll be lazy in Torah. We won't have any Torah. We'll have to be completely recreated. Not that we are learning, but not so well. There'll be no Torah. That's why it says Am Nivra. We need to be recreated. In the times of Purim, we didn't need to be recreated. We were created. We were learning. We just needed to be born. We existed. We just needed to come out of our shell. So says the Chassam Sofer, in the times of Purim, we were atzlanim. We were lazy. And what is the verdict of history? What are the repercussions of atzlas? So if you look in the Teichacha, it's a tachas asher lo yavadeta as Hashem leikecha b'simcha b'tuv leivav. So what's the next pasuk? V'yavadeta as yavecha asher yishalchenu Hashem bach. You're going to be scattered, dispersed throughout the world. That's why in the times of Purim, Klal Yisrael were not centrally located in Shushan or in Bar Park or in Flatbush or in Monsey. We were scattered everywhere. Why? Atzlus. When there's Atzlus, the Jews are everywhere. You think Esther sitting in her palace would not have rather the Jews have been only in one place? She would have much preferred Klal Yisrael centrally located, like Chazal say, Kinus l'tzadikim toiva lahem v'toiva la'olam. When tzadikim are centrally located, that is good for them, good for the whole world. But unfortunately, we weren't zoicha for that, because we had atzlus. That is why Esther protected the Jews everywhere. But in whose merit? In the merit of Abraham. Not in the merit of Abraham's. We said Abraham had 127 righteous years, from 48 to 175. But it wasn't in Abraham's merit. Abraham was a Zariz. Abraham be'el Abalka Ras Abraham. Abraham said Kemach. But in the times of Purim, we were atzlanim, we were everywhere. So it wasn't in the zchus of Abraham that Esther protected us. It was in the zchus of Sarah. Sarah also had this midah of atzlos. Okay? She was still a tzadikah. She still held like the Chacham Tzvi. She was doing mitzvah min ha-muvcha. But nevertheless, that is why Klal Yisrael was dispersed all over the world, says the Chasam Sofer. Because the result of atzlos, look in the Teichacha. Tachas ha-shelo yavadatos Hashem leikecha b'simcha. V'yavadatos oivecha asher shalchenu Hashem bach. We're scattered everywhere. So that's how Chazal know that the 127 Medinas was not in the zchus of Abraham, the Baal HaKemach. It was in the zchus of Sarah, the Baal HaSoilas. So Rabbi Kiva comes into the Shiur. He sees everybody sleeping. He says, Rabbi say, you have to know, when you come to learn, this is a very important moment. Because if you're going to be in Atzal, you're going to be farshlufen, you're going to be falling asleep. You know what happens to Klal Yisrael? Why was Esther Zoicha to protect over 127 Medinas? Why did she have to protect over the whole world? Why was Klal Yisrael scattered over the whole world? It was in Sarah's merit. Remember Sarah? The Baal HaSoilas. Atzlos. That's what happens from Atzlos. Rabbi Kiva wasn't just telling them some interesting tidbit. He's pointing out to them the devastating repercussions of the Atzaltayim Yimach HaMakara. What happens to Klal Yisrael when the Avodah is not invigorated, when it's not fresh, when it's not alive. Therefore, says the Chasam Sofer, that's what Chazal mean. Im ein kemach, ein Torah. If you don't have kemach, what's kemach? The midah of zrizos, of Abraham Avinu, you won't be able to learn. And that is how Rabbi Kiva woke up his Talmidim. So Rabbi said, coming back to the Nesiim, perhaps we could explain that what were the Nesiim thinking, telling Klal Yisrael, whatever you don't donate, we'll donate. They had very lofty intentions. They had very holy intentions. You know what their intentions were? Perhaps the Nesiim were following the opinion of the Chacham Tzvi. Better mitzvah min ha-muvchar than Zrizos. However, Chazal detect that their choice to follow this approach of whatever you don't donate, we'll donate, there was an underlying ulterior motive. And that underlying ulterior motive was, says Rashi, Lefishanes atzlu metchila. It's not that objectively they held mitzvah min ha-muvchar adif. It was motivated by the desire for the easy way out, a desire for taking it easy, a little bit of atzlos. And because of that, the yud was taken out of the name of the Nesiim. And therefore Rabbi Akiva comes, he wants to shake up his Talmidim, he wants to wake them up, and he recalls the fact that Klal Yisrael were scattered over 127 Medinas, and that was not in the zchus of Abraham, the Zaros, it was in the zchus of Sarah, who had this dakos of Lechem Atzlos Loisaichel. So when Purim comes, our avodah is to energize ourselves, to be mizares ourselves, b'limud haTorah, b'avodas Hashem, and this way we could tap into the zchus of the Baal HaKemach, because in Yesh Kemach, Yesh Torah, we should be zoicha to a Purim of Kabbalas HaTorah Me'ava, Kimu v'Kiblu HaYehudim. Rabbi, thank you for coming, thank you for listening, have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.